I don't think people should invest the way I invest. जब लिफ्ट में आप जाते हो 40th फ्लोर पे, आप बटन दबाते हो तो आपको फुल कॉन्फिडेंस है ना कि ये धड़ाम से गिरेगी नहीं. उतना कॉन्फिडेंस मेरे को स्टॉक मार्केट पे है. आपके सारे फ्रेंड्स जिस थीमेटिक फंड में पैसा डाल रहे हैं उसमें मत डालो, और जिसके बारे में कोई नहीं बात कर रहा है उसमें. People who are today 25-30 years of age, I genuinely believe they are going to be India's richest generation.
Welcome to Power Talks, a series where we talk to the CEOs, CXOs, and other industry leaders up close and personal to help you be the expert of your money. Today, we came all the way to Mumbai to talk to the CEO of White Oak Capital, Ashish Somaiya, who reveals his take on market valuations, the dangers of thematic funds, and what one should do in the current bear market. Also, in a special segment, we dive deeper into the more personal aspects of Ashish's life.
I don't give any stock tips to people.
Yeah.
Because every time I pass you in the lobby, I don't want to be asked क्या हुआ उसका.
Yeah.
So,
Hi Ashish, welcome to Power of Money. Today I'll just ask these questions which I as a 30-year-old investor has. So let's get started right away. And let's start with the big question that's like the talk of the town on, are the markets overvalued right now? And not just about the small mid like the recent news, but in general, what's your view on that?
see, I think, investing in markets is not about a destination, right? It's a journey. And there will always be phases when the markets will seemingly be overvalued or seemingly be undervalued. And within the market itself, one can't generalize, because there will again be within the market itself, there will be sectors and there will be segments of the market which will be attractive and some will be less attractive. All of us portfolio managers are trying to beat the market or beat the benchmark, right? Which intrinsically means that all of us are tasked with consistently rotating money from expensive stuff to relatively cheaper stuff, and discovering the price value gap, and then again moving to something else. And the benchmark is just our reference point. So, I mean, I've given you a long, complicated answer, but that's a nice way of saying there's no answer.
So, from an audience perspective, to derive a more actionable thing, right? What are the pockets that you right now see that are more overvalued or more undervalued?
No, I was going to give you an answer. See, look at it this way. Like, say right now, there's a lot of discussion that market has gone up a lot. The first thing I'd like to clarify to everybody that market has not gone as much as people make it out to be. It's so odd about numbers. If I tell you that in 5 years, the Sensex has compounded about 14%. Okay, meaning in 5 years, Sensex has gone from about 47,000 to say 75,000 or some such number. So in 5 years, Sensex has not even doubled. Correct? But instead of 5 years, if I tell you 4 years and 10 months, it's gone up nearly 3x. So anybody who tells you that market has gone up a lot is willy-nilly somewhere drawing their frame of reference from the bottom of COVID.
Right.
And for all our discussions, we should keep in mind that you should try to look through it, because just before COVID, the index was 46,000 Sensex, and Nifty was say 12,000. When COVID hit us, Sensex went to 25,000 and Nifty went to 8,700 or some such number. So in the 1 month of COVID, it fell 35 to 40%.
Right.
Now, why did it fall 40%? The reason is because when COVID hit us, most people thought that the case fatality rate will be 5%. It was almost like world will come to an end. We all will be locked up for 2-3 years. Vaccine will take 10 years. Why was there a moratorium announced? Because the RBI actually thought, or people actually thought, that banks will go under. So with that fear, it fell 40%. Now tell me, did any of those fears materialize? Case fatality rate was not even 0.5%. Vaccine came in 6 months. No banks went under. And forget 2 years, we all were flying in, with that thing in like 3-4 months. So we should not take that COVID bottom as our reference point. So if you get there out of the way, you will realize that net in last 5 years, index has done what it has been doing for like 30 years. Even from 1992 when we liberalized till now, Sensex CAGR is 14%. And from pre-COVID, it is 14%. And 3-4 months after COVID, se lekar yahan tak also it is 14%. So by no stretch of imagination, somebody can make a case that Sensex, Nifty, large indices are expensive. They're not. Big parts of the index, like, banks, IT companies, healthcare companies, some of the consumer companies, so many of them have actually been lagging the index itself. And the index has been pulled up a lot by macro policy driven stuff like say PSUs, infrastructure, defense, railway, all those kinds of things. So that is one thing, that the large cap index and a good part of the large cap index is nowhere near crazy. That's the attractive part to invest. Now come to say small caps and mid caps. Mid caps, yes. The whole industry has been directed to put bulk of their money in those 150 stocks, and I'm not very comfortable with that. So mid cap, I would agree. Now come to small cap. Small cap is a part of the market which is very heterogeneous. If you say small cap PSU, small cap defense, small cap railway, yes, gone up a lot. But if you say small cap lenders, financial services companies, NBFC, some of the capital market companies, in small cap, if you say, आए दिन हम लोगों को नए ideas मिलते हैं manufacturing में, right? So small cap also I cannot generalize. It's a very vast space. It is very heterogeneous. So I would say, like I said before, I've just explained in more detail that there are always certain parts of the market which are there, which are interesting, which are exciting.
Right.
And we should not say that market is expensive, तो पैसा निकाल लो. So people have to understand nuances rather than looking for absolute answer. I mean, absolute statements get a lot of attention,
Right.
but they're no use.
But do you think that given right now markets, like DIIs are really driving a lot, right? Even after the whole, FII selling last year, the markets continued to rally. And because maybe we don't know much, it becomes so volatile. So do you think, like, what is your view on retail participation? Like, will we still continue this bull rally, or are we headed for like a bigger correction?
See, bull market तो एक तरफा नहीं चलेगा कभी. It will never be unidirectional. It will never be like just a sustained up move. And I hope it's not that way, because if there's a sustained up move, you will have a bubble and, none of us will make returns. Correct? And there is no case for anything of that type happening. And when we talk about investors, say you said a lot of new participants, young investors. See, again, there also, at any point in time, there is a cohort of investors who has been through a couple of cycles and seen the ups and downs, and who understand that all this is just song and dance. This is a feature, not a bug. ये ऐसे ही चलता है. There are some people who are very experienced. There are some people who have seen like couple of cycles. There are some people who came in 2018 who might think, man, this is really hard. हर दूसरे तीसरे साल में कुछ होता है. And there are some people who came in 2020 who think, wow, this is so easy. What are people complaining? So people who came in 2018, they need to realize, or people who came in 2024, they need to realize it's not as hard as it looks. The people who came in 2020, they need to realize it's not as easy as it looks. Right? So you will always find people with different levels or cohorts of experience. But in the long run, I feel that our capital market participation is only going to increase. You know why? Because today in India, not accurate numbers, but if you take 21-year-olds, there are 2 crore people. If you take 22-year-olds, there are 2 crore people. अब हर एज 15 से लेकर के 35 तक का हर एक एज लोग है ना, तो मेरे ख्याल में 1.25 से 2.25 करोड़ लोग हैं उसमें. अब इसमें से कुछ लोगों का तो मन करेगा कि भाई इन्वेस्ट करना है, कुछ लोग तो आमदनी कुछ कमाएंगे. सम पीपल विल अर्न सम मनी एंड दे विल इन्वेस्ट. एंड आई डोंट थिंक योर जनरेशन इज गोइंग टू गो टू द पोस्ट ऑफिस टू ओपन अ पोस्टल सेविंग अकाउंट, एंड आई डोंट थिंक यू आर dying to put money in a bank deposit. Right? That's where digitization matters. Low interest rates, digitization, change of habits, change of preferences. So, it's a different world. I think young people's participation is only going to go up. And I think people who are young today, they understand markets better than what I did 25 years back.
Or else like market has a way to teach them through the cycles, I guess.
See, the thing is about, evolution. Like, see, when I was 25 years old, so that's like long back, I'm nearing 50 now. So when I was 25 years old, Harshad Mehta and stuff had just come out of the newspapers. What you saw as a OTT thing, we've seen it in the newspapers when I was in college, right? I would definitely know people in my family and friend circle who lost a lot of money, right? So in the late 90s, losing money in the stock market was the equivalent of gambling. Today, losing money in the stock market is an acceptable way of losing money, let me put it that way. So that's why I said, habits change with generations, and people who are today 25 years old, they've seen a long history of the market. They know how it works. They are better educated than most people 25 years back. They have better socioeconomic background, risk profile, risk tolerance, whatever you call it. And they are more familiar with these processes.
No, fair point. And that's where, we were talking about this late 20s, 30s kind of audience, people like me. I think we do understand that equity is
Yeah.
the way to create long-term wealth.
Absolutely.
And that is where the finer questions, right? Where to invest? Should I rebalance? Should I exit? Should I stop my SIP? Are the questions that we actively ask.
Yeah.
And on that note, because we are talking about retail investors, I think a big chunk of inflow for retail investors went into sectoral funds last year. And even I think White Oak also launched a couple of thematic funds. What's your view on sectoral funds overall? And for a retail investor, how should I go about, selecting a fund?
See, I'll tell you what, let me be honest with you that most people can do perfectly fine without owning any thematic fund or sectoral fund. Okay. It's not that everybody has to have it in the portfolio. Most people are very well served if they have a couple of flexi cap, multi cap kind of diversified funds whose benchmark is say BSE 500 index. That would suffice for most people if they keep doing their SIP and then forget about it. The second thing you rightly said that 25 to 35, these people, they understand equities for long term. But the thing is that you have to implement what you understand and you have to leverage the fact that if you're 25, 30, then you really can invest for 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
So with that in mind, now on your question that yes, there are so many thematic funds. Now let us say that why would you consider investing in a thematic fund? Generally, most of the portfolios will have what is there, diversified portfolios should have broad exposure to most sectors and themes because like I said, benchmark is BSE 500. So it would cover a lot of the areas of the market. Let's say I have diversified funds. You've done what I said and you have it and you say thematic fund. अब अगर लेना है thematic fund, तो how would you look at it? So when we raise money in thematics or when you raise money in thematic funds, you should make sure that we are raising and you are deploying in a sector which is underperformed for quite some time. It's an important sector, it's a big sector, it's a material part of the market, has good earnings growth or has good fundamentals, but underperforming in the market for long time. फिर उसके बाद आप पैसा उसमें डालोगे तो क्या होगा आपके डाइवर्सिफाइड फंड से ज्यादा रिटर्न उसमें आपका बनेगा. So the thing to keep in mind about thematic funds is only two. One, you should buy a thematic fund after it has underperformed, not after that sector has blown the lights out. Second, it should be like some 10-20% component of the market, like banking and financial services 30% of the market. Healthcare, just pharma companies are 6% of the market. So healthcare is a bigger sector. I mean, potential is bigger. But if you say transportation and logistics, if you say defense, if you say micro cap stocks, it's a very tiny sliver. It's a tiny like crack. You're operating in a crack or corner or crevice of the market. If it goes through a long cycle, you're stuck for 10 years. It's not going to come back. So I think we should stay away from narrow parts of the market and stay away from buying those themes or sectors which has already run up a lot in the past.
Right.
That's the point.
Well, I think very fair point. Researching well to find those concentrated pockets where actually you can sort of achieve the upside.
और जिसमें आपके सारे फ्रेंड्स जिस थीमेटिक फंड में पैसा डाल रहे हैं उसमें मत डालो.
Yeah.
और जिसके बारे में कोई नहीं बात कर रहा है उसमें.
Yeah, but on the contrary, हमेशा यही होता है कि AUM sort of follows the returns. तो पहले returns बहुत ज़्यादा आ जाते हैं and then the AUM comes, which is something that, we want to make people aware कि that's not the right way.
Never do that. Like, where everybody and his uncle is investing and the AUM is, that's a very good heuristic you gave, that you should just check. Segment where AUM is rising very rapidly, stay away from that. Very good point.
Yeah.
Like I a lot of times tell people, you have to shoot where the rabbit will be.
Right.
Not where it was 2 years back.
Yeah. And because you mentioned this line, right, कि thematic doesn't need to be in everyone's portfolio and you have a couple of flexi, hybrid, etc. Again, I know that's not one answer for everyone, but let's consider like, this 30, 35-year-old person. What's like the kind of portfolio that you would recommend to this person, like the portfolio diversification?
See, by 30, 35 years, if you say, I'm assuming that this person has no immediate, leave aside emergencies, those can't be predicted. But barring emergencies, let us say this 30, 35-year-old is doing SIPs or making investment from money which can actually be spared for a time frame like say 10 years, right? Any money which is there for immediate requirement or you need liquidity, we are not talking about that. I assume you set it aside. This is your long-term investment. Now, anybody with that profile should ideally be having a minimum 10-year time horizon, investing regularly by way of SIPs and investing in say a couple of multi-cap funds. That's maybe more than enough really.
Okay.
And if you don't do multi-cap, I personally think that a multi-cap fund chosen from say 2-3 fund houses should do the trick. Just hold on to it. when do people go for, say, large cap? Is when people are like, okay, multi-cap fund is 60-70% mid and small cap. You know, it can go through very big cycles of ups and downs, and it can have extremes of performance, right? So then people say, okay, you know, I cannot handle this level of ups and downs and lose sleep in the night. So they'll go for large cap, right? There are some guys who will say that I'm very aggressive. You know, I don't care about all these ups and downs, just need the highest possible return. Then they might go for small cap. The point is like this, that volatility is not risk, but it's just that volatility, which exposes to extremes, it brings out emotions.
Yeah. Whatever like makes you sleep comfortably.
Yeah, because you know, when your emotions are evoked, see, when you get a lot of return more than what you even expected, like in 2024, सबको लगा कि मतलब ये तो,
Yeah.
you know, मतलब I'll retire, तो बहुत हो गया, right? तो तभी इतना क्रेडिट नहीं लेना चाहिए. तब लोगों को लगता है कि, you know, पूरा पैसा इक्विटी में लगा दो, you know, I'll be retiring in 40 years of age. It's not that easy. So that is your emotion of greed. There are times like early 2025, when you feel अरे गलत जगह में आ गया यार, ये तो मतलब हर दिन 3% गिर रहा है,
True.
right? That's when your emotion comes out. That's of fear. That have I put my money in the right place? So, and you know, your age and your profile requires you to be in equity, but you put money in fixed deposit. Then you see your friends making a lot of money. That is envy. So never do something which will invoke your emotions, because when your emotions are invoked, you are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And emotions come only when you do extreme things. So never do extreme things. You know, always be a bit, you know, keep mindful of base rates and always be a bit centered or balanced in your decisions.
Yeah. No, fair. I think I always talk about like, you know, money is less numbers, actually more heart, like how you feel about money. And I think going through those ups and downs. But like Ashish, you mentioned mostly on equity. What about having exposure to debt or hybrid funds, like, or even gold for that matter?
So, you know, see, like we spoke about equity because, you know, say we are talking 30-35 equity long-term horizon. But clearly everybody doesn't have all the money for next 10 years, right? Let's say you got a reasonable incentive, or, you know, you got some liquidity from stock options, or, you know, you have some savings, and, you know, you are going to go through an asset purchase. Say, you know, I get some bonus or I get some ESOP money, you know, stock got listed or something. And, you know, after a couple of years, I think that, okay, I'm going to buy a car, or I'm going to, you know, let's say get married, or somebody's marriage in the family or something. Let's say you're investing for 2 years. So then, of course, you need to be in a hybrid fund, you know, which will have a good mix of equity, gold, fixed income. I mean, equity, gold, fixed income, some hybrid product. If you say that your money for the next 3 to 6 months, you have to be in an arbitrage fund or a liquid fund. So there are horses for courses. I know you have to see how much money you can spare for what time horizon, and accordingly, you will have to decide where it can be parked.
So I think good framework, depending on the time horizon, you choose the right type of fund, whether it's equity, whether it's debt, or whether it's arbitrage.
Absolutely.
Fair. And now that we're talking about the types of fund, I also observed that you don't have passive funds right now in White Oak. What's your view on passive funds versus active funds?
No, I think, see, passive funds have a role to play. And there are many times, you know, like I tell people many times that if you don't know what to buy, you buy the market. So when you buy Nifty 500, you bought pretty much India's 95% market cap, almost all of India's market. If you buy S&P 500, you buy a significant chunk of US market. And the minimum investments are, I think, if I'm not wrong, still some 100 or 500 rupees. 500 रुपया में अगर आपको Nifty 500 भी मिलता है, S&P 500 भी मिलता है, और क्या चाहिए? Right? Yes, but a lot of time people buy multi-cap funds because they feel that, no, this is a well-run multi-cap fund, good research team, good allocation to small caps. And, you know, small caps, you can generate alpha. So people think that, okay, you know, a good multi-cap fund will beat Nifty 500. अगर अपना 3-4% ज़्यादा बन जाएगा, so ultimately it's about life goals, right? You are going that much faster. So I think that people who want simplicity, people who are DIY, I think they are better off doing index and all.
Okay.
Right? But people who are looking for higher return, who feel that, yes, and by the way, I genuinely think that in India, there is a lot of potential to generate alpha because our per capita income is $2,600. अभी यहाँ पे सेव भुजिया पोटैटो वेफर वाले का IPO भी आ रहा है, मतलब, right? It's not like we are like a fully discovered market. Bulk of our economy is not reflected in the markets, right? We have some amazing companies coming out of the cradle of private equity. We have some fabulous entrepreneurs who are in the next 2-3 years, you know, as the economy scales, exports, manufacturing, a lot of these areas, you will find great companies coming into the market. And, you know, we have like a very large team which covers some 950,000 companies. So I believe that there is potential for alpha, and my money is in active funds. But I do believe that there is a space for passive funds because a lot of people are not looking for all of this. They're just looking for simplicity and ease of decision making. They don't want to make all these choices. So there is place for all these choices.
Perfect. So, our investors and me also, I'm very curious about people behind these fund houses, and we would like to know more about you as a person. Let's start with your personal portfolio. What's your investment strategy like?
So, Navda, I will say that I'm not a very disciplined investor, and I don't think people should invest the way I invest. Okay. So, my investment, you can say, is predominantly, everything is either equity or real estate. I don't do anything else.
What's the split like, if you can share?
Yeah, it would be roughly half and half.
Okay.
If you ask me, yeah, half. And equity would include public and private equity. No ESOPs or anything, not including that. And yeah, real estate, maybe half and half.
Okay. And do you also invest through SIPs?
So, हमारे तो compulsory है ना?
Okay.
Because it's part of our regulation. I don't know if your listeners will know this. India's industry is the only industry in the world where CEO, CIO, fund managers, all the CXOs, and anybody who may or may not be CXO but reporting to me, as per regulation, it is mandated that any kind of compensation we receive, post-tax value of that, from that 20% has to be invested in our funds.
So the discipline is sort of inculcated via this.
Yeah, I mean,
law.
अगर आप पूरे गांव भर में जाके सबको बोलते हो SIP करो तो तुमको तो करना पड़ेगा.
Yeah.
So it's compulsory.
Okay, got it. And very curious, so you handle like so much AUM. I think I was reading White Oak has like $8 billion of AUM.
It's nearly 10 billion, but yeah, I'm responsible for domestic business, which is say 3.5.
That's also huge numbers for us to process. Do you get stressed or get overwhelmed while dealing with such huge numbers?
No, so we don't get stressed. I don't get stressed by the size of the numbers. But yes, every once in a while, you're ultimately, say, let me give an example of 2020. Now, when we hit 2020, or let's say 2008, 2013, see, when these moments in the market come, my portfolio or where I am investing is least of the concern, right? Because I'm absolutely an out and out equity investor. So I know, जैसे I'll give you an example. जब लिफ्ट में आप जाते हो 40th फ्लोर पे, आप बटन दबाते हो, तो आपको पता है लिफ्ट कैसे चलता है. तो आपको फुल कॉन्फिडेंस है ना कि ये धड़ाम से गिरेगी नहीं. You know ना that something goes wrong तो ब्रेक लगेगा. So complete confidence in that. You never seen the whole mechanism, right? But you're confident.
Right.
तो जैसे लोग 50th फ्लोर से बटन दबा के बड़े आराम से नीचे आ जाते हैं ना, they never even think कि इसमें कुछ होने वाला है. उतना कॉन्फिडेंस मेरे को स्टॉक मार्केट पे है. I know it's a science. So I never lose sleep over it. But when does the stress come? Let's say, in 2020, in a day, on any given day, I was probably doing 3 webinars. And on any given day, I was probably speaking to a lot of people in person and giving media interviews. So when every once in a while, when this moment comes, when the whole day you're talking to people who have lost 30-40% of their investments, that is what causes stress. I don't get stressed at all about the scale, right? We have systems, we have processes, we have regulation, we have protocols. We know, black swans are black swans, unforeseen circumstances, touch wood, we see, don't see, we may know how to handle. All that is fine. We're prepared for all of that. But the point is that just dealing with people, hand-holding, counseling, listening, being a good listener, putting across your point in an acceptable manner, I think those are stressful situations.
So you have been in this market, like in this industry for over 2 decades, you know about the markets. Do you also get your friends and family like asking you these stock tips, or like how do you deal with those questions?
See, I have I narrate certain jokes. Every time somebody asks me, like say, there's a gathering in my say apartment where I live. If somebody tells me that, कुछ stock बताओ क्या करना है. So I say, मेरे को कल भी आना है ना इधर, मेरे को तो रोज रहना है यहाँ पे. So I cannot give you a tip, right? Because every time I pass you in the lobby, I don't want to be asked क्या हुआ उसका.
Yeah.
So I don't give any stock tips to people.
Yeah.
Not really. Because, it's not the right way to invest. So better not to encourage that.
Of course.
And I really don't want people to, every time people look at me, I don't want them to be in a different...
Right. No, fair. Next question, you have been CEO for like a really long time. What's your view on like work-life balance? How does your they look like, and especially with those whole 90-hour work weeks discussion. What's your take on that?
See, I think एक nuanced perspective है. मतलब मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि we cannot demand कि भाई 90 hours तुमको काम करना चाहिए. The environment has to be such that people feel like working 90 hours. So सबका अपना अपना preference है, सबका अपना अपना efficiency level है, सबका अपना अपना motivation level है, and सबको CEO नहीं बनने का है. Right? Like, a lot of times CEOs come and say you should work for 90 hours. अरे भाई सबको CEO नहीं बनना है ना यार, तुम बन गए अच्छा है. Right? बाकी लोगों के लिए तुम environment create करो. And as far as work-life balance is concerned, I'm not, I don't really talk about it or think too much about it, because you can say I'm working all the time or you can say I'm not working. See, like on a Monday morning, 11 o'clock, I might be at my son's school, right? On a Sunday, most Saturdays and Sundays, actually, I'm traveling. I'm doing road shows or doing public speaking. So I think one has to be flexible and do what is relevant at what point in time.
Yeah.
I don't think you can make like, color-coded calendars.
Right. You can't compartmentalize this as work life. I think it gets blurry and
Compartmentalization से ज़्यादा stress होता है.
okay, cool. Last question. I think any book recommendation that you have for our audience, both finance and non-finance.
So I read topically.
Okay.
I don't read fiction.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, since you're asking for examples, 2-3 books. Say when it comes to sales, there's a book called Ultimate Sales Machine.
Okay.
That's very famous. When it comes to, written by Chet Holmes, there is a book called, my favorite book on strategy is a book called Eating the Big Fish.
Okay.
Eating the Big Fish, I think Adam Morgan. Then there is a book called Investing, The Last Liberal Art. The second name of the author is Hagstrom. First name, I'm not sure, Roger or Robert, but it's Hagstrom. Then Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. So these are some examples. Then a book called Focus by Al Rice and Laura Rice. Yeah. So yeah, these are just examples. But, I collect books. I have lots of books which I haven't read. And I love reading. But yeah, these are just some examples.
Perfect. I think great. That's all. I think thank you so much for sharing both aspects, not just about markets, but also sharing about, your personal opinions, your personal journey. This has been such an insightful conversation. I think final question for this podcast to wrap up, our audience, right? What's like that one piece of advice that you have for this intermediate investor, I like to call them, who is like somewhere in their journey of knowing that they want to they want to stay invested?
Yeah.
What should they do?
See, I think this generation, if they stay invested, at least they have like a fabulous runway. My personal opinion, people talk about Amrit Kal and India's growth and GDP and stuff and the next 20 years being great, etc. I think people who are today 25, 30 years of age, I genuinely believe they are going to be India's richest generation. Because a lot of them, when India started to go from being a poor country to a lower middle income country. So the first bunch of people who are at least likely, some of them or a few of them are likely to have inheritances, and a lot of them or most of them are likely to be middle class and above or affluent. So people who are today, not my generation, not the one later, but today people who are 25 to 35, they are going to be India's richest generation, because they will be in the thick of things when India transforms to being a middle income or hopefully an affluent country, right? So they should do everything in their power and everything that they can get themselves to behave in a way that they stick to investing and don't break the discipline, because they have a lot to gain. Look, when I started investing, India's markets, India's economy, the politics, we were known to be kind of, back of beyond. And the level of confidence, my generation in late 90s, our level of confidence in our future versus today's youngster and their level of confidence in their future, very different.
Yeah.
Very different. You have an open book exam. we were like trying to fight our way. It's that way.
Perfect. Great. I think that's the perfect note to wrap up today's conversation. Thank you so much, Ashish, for taking out the time. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.